Some of you have already started asking questions. Can I request you to post it in the questions tab and not the chat tab, please, so that I can project the question and answer. I have two questions. Okay, well, I'll wait for. Okay, so I see Lakshmi asking this question. Can you guys see the question? This is an interesting question, Lakshmi. Aren't these attributes evolving? Should we wait for it to evolve and then do the testing? Well, they don't evolve every year or every now and then. The foundational attributes that I called out, your aptitude, which is verbal, numerical, analytical. So there is more than a century of evidence available that they are correlated to at least a certain hygiene level of performance. While they are evolved, for example, from a linear concept of intelligence, which is verbal, analytical, numerical, it took almost 50, 60 years for the next idea to evolve, which is Howard Gardner's idea of multiple intelligences. In fact, many of us use the term IQ or intelligence without even recognizing what is the definition or what technically that is. Technically, intelligence is nothing but responding to stimulus. So your computer is intelligent, your dog is intelligent, your light bulb is intelligent. Everything is intelligent to a certain degree. So intelligence quotient is some kind of a generic assessment of how good would you be in responding to the environment. And in the industrial age, they needed a certain measurement, okay, to assess whether someone is good enough, can I hire the guy, etc., etc. Right? So that is how it is. So my answer to your question is, I don't think there is any need to wait, okay? So when it evolves and when you find better models, you can kind of test again. These things will only become better and better and cheaper, okay, to evaluate. But as a parent, it's important for you to start showing interest in gathering good quantitative scientific data. You will end of the day use your instinct to make decisions, but it's important for you to start measuring. I think you should do that, Lakshmi. I hope I've answered your question. Ganesh Kumar is asking, is there a tool to identify the potential of the kid? Absolutely. There are very many available. In Mentor, we have done our research and we offer one tool that allows you to measure the aptitude, the personality profile, and the multiple intelligences. And we try and answer questions like, what are the natural strengths of the child? I'll tell you where the issue is normally. Typically, when the child is around 6, there is a certain amount of independence that begins to show. And between, say, 6 or 7 to 13 is the time you can seriously build strengths and expertise by investing a lot. So if you can identify that the child is an introverted child, the child is very diligent, then I think you can put the child through a certain kind of skill sets, invest more in building those skill sets, okay, so that the child acquires a great level of expertise, okay, in using that capability. On the other hand, if you find the kinesthetic intelligence of a child to be high, you can invest in a sport. Nowadays, the sports, for example, you'll never make it really to the level of excellence unless you kind of invest yourself early on. So there are very many things that you can identify. You can also identify what kind of environments, okay, are non-threatening and really nourishing for the child to explore the world. So there is a tool to identify the potential of the kid, and we are offering one. If you kind of surf the internet or connect with me separately, depending on the specific concerns that you have, I can recommend the right one, okay, to go with. biggest challenge, Prabhakar Acharya says, so biggest challenge is assess capabilities and inclination of a child. See, capability is a slightly more specific word, Prabhakar. I don't know what you mean by capabilities, but in general, if you look at intelligences, okay, Howard Gardner calls out 8 of them as talents. Intrapersonal intelligence. Some children are capable of high levels of discipline and diligence. They can focus, their attention spans are longer. Interpersonal intelligence. Some children are very, very capable of doing conversations, reaching out, okay, and trying out adventures, okay, they are extroverted and they are interpersonally very strong. You will find some children exceptionally good at logical mathematical intelligence. You'll find some children exceptionally good at musical intelligence, exceptionally good in kinesthetic intelligence, which is bodily expression. Some are very good in spatial intelligence, very imaginative, very creative. So to answer your question, it is a challenge because you don't have access to the right tools. And you need to research enough, you need to read enough, okay, about what are the ways in which, the human potential manifests. And that's why I'm doing this session to help you prioritize and single out 3 things. One is aptitude, which is important, but that's not the end all of it. Some children have high aptitude, some children have low aptitude, but they may have very, very brighter sides of their intelligences which can be used. So there are quite a few musicians who can't even recite a table, okay, a multiplication table, but who cares? They are exceptionally good. Their sense of mathematics and rhythm is musically expressed, okay. So it's important for you to therefore test, gather data, as well as assess the child through observations. Okay, I hope I've answered your question, Prabhat. Where is a self-attitude and self-confidence play a role? See, self-attitude is the intrinsic way in which any human being believes he or she should approach the world. For example, I showed you something called personality. Personality is the preferred way in which you deal with the world. For example, there are some people who naturally feel they are more powerful than the environment. And you will find them to be confident, assertive, sometimes very aggressive and arrogant. Now, you could call that an attitude, but it's a natural wiring that fellow has in how he views the environment. There are people who will view themselves as less powerful than the environment. It's both a matter of natural wiring as well as a matter of, how the child has been exposed to in terms of environments. Same way, there are some people who view their environments as a friendly, supportive place. Some view it as a hostile and antagonistic place. So, depending on how they view it, okay, powerful or less powerful, more powerful, friendly or hostile. Now, these combinations create wirings, which is what you largely called as attitude, okay. I call it personality drives, okay. It's like an engine with different kinds of fuels. Whether it's electric or petrol or gas or diesel, all of them will create movement. But they will create different kinds of movement. And it's today possible to very accurately understand what is the dominant fuel inside your child. And it's possible. Self-confidence, again, has a very skewed interpretation in this world. For example, people who are extroverted and reach out to others are often seen as self-confident. But there are people who don't reach out to others, but they are superbly confident of their abilities. So you need to see this in context, right? I hope I've answered your question, Rajendran. How do you identify the interest and skill of a kid as a parent? Now, interest and skills obviously can be done through observations, Bhaskar. You have to carefully expose the child to multiple possible environments and you can observe. But this is a very time-taking and a longish process. But I would still recommend you be very mindful when you are with your child and make observations about what is your child excited by and what it is not. But instead of waiting for it, like the child potential assessment I was speaking to you about, I very carefully, after years of research, constructed it, because this is a predictive way of trying to look at what could the child, be interested in and what are the possible talents the child could have. Once you have this data, then you can validate this data by exposing the child to multiple things. For example, there are many people who believe that their child should go to a math tuition or an abacus class, more importantly, because that is going to be a foundational skill. And particularly, let's say if it is a boy, then they may not want the boy to go to a music class. Whereas the boy may have an intrinsic wiring for learning music. And you could actually expose him to both an abacus class and a music class and see where does he show interest. Or you could expose him to a sport. The point is, you need to know with some clarity what are the environments you could kind of expose the child and allow the child to kind of figure out if he or she is finding that natural. So you can identify using, let us say, a method like a child potential assessment. The alternative is, keep exposing the child to all kinds of things, okay, and then, try and figure out if something is working. Problem is, many of us don't have the time and patience, okay, to run this in a systematic way. So you could identify, right? Why are school curriculum not using diagnostic tools and upgrade children in early days? Brilliant question, Rajendran, but you are the customer. You don't demand it, right? You only want marks for your children. You're very concerned about whether the child is scoring well, and therefore the school is responding to it. Actually, I'll very quickly tell you how the schooling system evolved. Even today, more than 85% of children in this world are privately educated, including sub-Saharan Africa. It is the parents who pay for the education. It's not funded by government and all that. That said, who decides what your child learns and how it learns and what are the priorities? It is essentially the government, okay, by way of their boards, by way of their curriculum definitions, okay, and rules for the school, etc., etc. It's a very closely governed and guarded area. Of course, you may have options in terms of going with one board or the other. You could do CBSE, you could do ICSE, etc., etc. But we are so caught up with a compliance-oriented education process. Okay, and I'll tell you how it happened. It's very funny. In 1806, France, led by Napoleon, went on a war with Germany, the modern Germany. Then it used to be called Prussia. And French defeated Prussia. And Prussia was very stung by the defeat. And Prussia thought, we are a modern army, technologically superior. Why did we lose the war? So they went to their leading intellectual called William von Humboldt, okay, and asked him, so why did we lose? And Humboldt, made a beautiful statement. He said, look, if you have too many free-thinking people in your army, how do you expect, your army to win wars? They'll be debating what to do, and the enemy who's disciplined will beat you black and blue. So they asked him, how do we deal with this? So he said, educate your children differently for one generation and you will see the outcomes. So they asked him, what should we do? And he just said three things, and listen carefully. First, he said, do not allow the child to learn anything deep. Keep the learning short and sporadic. The second thing that he said was that let the child not decide what he or she learns. Let the teacher decide what the child learns. So between 10:30 and 11:15, the child has to learn mathematics. Who makes the decision? Timetables, teachers. Third, he said every time when you make the child move from one learning to the other, use an icon like a bell. to let the child know that now I'm asking you to do something different and you have to do that. Now, does it ring a bell? Pun intended. Basically, what you have experienced in your schools and colleges is largely this: the Humboldt prescription of conditioning you to believe that compliance is important. And it practically took free thinking away. So we are, even today, we are victims and slaves of this compliance mentality in many areas that we do. Thankfully, with increasing abundance and lessening scarcity in our lives, more and more free thinking is happening. More access to information, more resources, more time and energy, from the parents is making that possible. But what happened was, in 1806 this happened. Between 1806 and 1830, the Germans actually took to the Humboldt form of schooling, and in 1830 they defeated France convincingly. Proof of concept. And between 1830 and 1850, the Civil War in America took notice of it. The North Carolina public schooling system actually used this method. And the British and the French, the biggest colonizers, in the 19th and 20th centuries, they took the idea and created this whole mass production factories called schooling. So the purpose is to create compliant citizenry and not necessarily to create, free thinkers. So this is just not going to happen unless children demand it. But there are rays of hope, Rajendran. If you must know, Chennai is turning out to be the world's capital of homeschooling. There are many parents in Chennai, still a small number, but the largest relatively in the world, people who are taking their children out of the schooling system and educating them themselves. I hope that answers your question. My child is neither an introvert or an extrovert. While he socializes majorly among children of his age, I see him shying away from adults. His first love is cars. I would like to hear your opinion about where are we headed in this joyous journey. I think you're perfectly okay. The point is you're making very surface level observations like his first love is cars. What is the reason for his interest in cars? For example, is he interested in the mechanics of the cars? Has he ever torn open a car and put it back together? Then his motivation is different. Does he like the glamour of the cars in terms of colors and shapes? Then I think his motivation is different. So once again, these surface level observations, often confuse you. You have to go back and look at which of his personality drives or which of his intelligences is triggering his interest in cars. Number one. Number two, what are the other things that you have exposed him to make an assessment that his interest in cars is significantly high? Remember, children take up to what they are exposed to, what they are supported to explore, and then they make a choice, a physical choice of what they want to be in. I will still say you must take a careful look at what are the intrinsic elements of your child's potential. The aptitude part, the personality part, and the multiple intelligences part. That will help you answer questions better, Kiruba. Each kid has a different way to learn for sure. How could you identify best and exciting way to learn for the kid? Beautiful. There are actually assessments to figure out what is the way in which your kid learns. So let me give you this little thing about learning. First of all, learning and knowing are different. Learning and absorbing are different. Because our schooling system is highly cognitive and it focuses a lot on knowledge, therefore we all look at how a child learns. Peter Drucker beautifully, describes in one of his articles, the way we learn or the way we gather knowledge can be visual, can be auditory. So some kids, love conversations and learn better. Some kids, love visually looking at things, schematics and diagrams, help. Some children want to kind of do some stuff, putting some stuff together. So visual, auditory, kinesthetic is one way of looking at how your child may like learning. Either you can test the child for a good VAK test, or you can observe, okay, what works with your child. The second is, to look at how we perceive information and how we process information, Bhaskar. This is equally applicable of adults. I have noticed that even today I find it challenging to deal with a mix of people in our classroom. If you look at the way we perceive information, some of us are very comfortable with abstract concepts, models, theories, ideas, okay, so we like it. But some of us are very comfortable only with concrete experiences. So we would like to hear a story, we would like to hear a case, we would like to see some data in real-time application. So we operate from this end to that end of the continuum. You could be anywhere in the middle, but leaning more to one than the other. This is how we perceive information, gather information. The second way in which you look at is how do you process information? What makes something that you learn or know stick in your body and become a repetitive skill? So that involves processing. Here again, if you look at it, some of us are very, very comfortable looking at a video or watching someone do something and then, internally mimic and then perform. Particularly those who are introverted, those who may not want to be exposed or judged, would want to do reflective observation and learn. There are some people who have no hesitation in being seen out and also, to look at trying things, okay? That's called active experimentation. So your processing of learning can either be reflective observation or it can be active experimentation. Could be a combination of the two as well, but you tend to lean towards one more than the other. So it can be a 2x2 matrix. Okay, so abstract concept, active experimentation, abstract concept, reflective observation, or concrete experience, reflective observation, concrete experience, active experimentation. This is called the David Kolb's learning style theory. So there are instruments, that will help you assess this. But remember, Bhaskar, your problem is going to come in terms of solutions. Unless you are able to create the most preferred form of learning for your child, your schools are going to basically either follow one or two, time-tested things that are comfortable for the teacher, not for the student. Some schools try and teach around by exposing to multiple methodologies. But be very careful about how your solutions, okay, are going to be. But it is testable, Bhaskar. So we are very close to the end of the show, so 1 minute to go. Thank you very much. And I just want to kind of, close this session with one concluding slide. And I want to kind of wish you well. So let me kind of, share the slide. So I hope you can see this. So what we try to do in Mentor is that we provide a variety of virtual attitude mirrors, and child potential assessment is a tool that measures aptitude, personality, and intelligences and suggests areas that we can invest and nurture in a kid. So for children who are below 14, we get this whole assessment done by the parents. We gather perceptions about the kid from the parents. We don't want to test the kid and put the kid through any difficulty. So there's a report, you can work on your insights, and some expert will help you make plans for nurturing your kid's potential. So you can contact us, you will receive a survey at the end of this session, and we would be more than happy to help you and guide you in terms of assessing your child's potential. So all the best, have a wonderful time, enjoy yourself, and remember Kalhil, Gibran, they are not of you, they are not for you, they are only through you. So take care of your child and let's make this world an awesome place for your children, right? Amazing. Thank you very much. Yeah, take care. Namaste. Yeah, have a wonderful time.